The following is for information purposes only and should not be considered investment advice. All opinions and views expressed by the contributors to this podcast are in a personal capacity only. They do not represent the views of Progressive Equity Research or any other organisation mentioned in this podcast.
Welcome to Talking Tech from Progressive with George O'Connor and myself, Ian Robertson, the podcast where we talk about the UK small and mid-cap listed tech market and try and bring some facts and understanding to bear. George, it's good to see you. We're mid-September, equinox, known to us sailors as a windy time of year.
Ian, you join me as I'm still celebrating the big and beautiful tech prosperity deal. Now, for me, it's BBTP. Because tech loves an acronym. Bunting is still up here. It's high fives all around. And now naysayers have been saying that BBTP could make the UK a vassal state. I completely disagree with it. Yes, the UK is ceding a position in AI foundational technology that the French with Mistral and the Germans with Helsing still have options on. But for me, the strength of the UK is that we are just better at the industrial application of the underlying technology, be that in medical, healthcare, science, defense, fintech, and design. The industry is going to be jumping up and down and hooping on this one. Or so I thought. One of the person who should be jumping up and down is Mike Norris, CEO at Computer Center. He has been bemoaning the lack of infrastructure spend in the UK. But for Mike, every silver lining comes with a cloud attached. And Mike is currently being sued by Tesco, a customer, alongside Broadcom and VMware. Ian, we thought we were through the whole on-prem SaaS transition years ago, but apparently not. Tesco bought a perpetual VMware license back in 2021, had a 5-year support, and now they're being asked to pay double as Broadcom moves that from perpetual to subscription. Anyway, well done, Tesco, for having the chutzpah to push this through. Other one who should be jumping up and down and cheering about the BBTP is, of course, jobs and employment, because this is touted as one of the big gains from it. But what we know is that unemployment is rising, but it's rising most amongst the younger Gen Z 16 to 24-year-olds. A group of economists over in Stanford have said that the number of employed software engineers in this age category is now 20% lower than it was in July 2022. Finally, the big guys who should be celebrating BBTP is Oracle. Oracle is doing really well selling IT infrastructure. The guys just closed a mega quarter. Cloud revenue was up 28%, infrastructure revenue up 55%. Whatever, don't care. The big number was RPO, that's remaining performance obligations. They were up 359% year on year. Woohoo! Yes. Bunting, high fives all around to 455 billion. Consensus on the street was 180. So huge beat. In addition to that, on the analyst call, Oracle gave guidance that the RPO number would grow to 18 billion this year. And in true hockey stick form, was then going to go on to 32, 73, 114 billion. AI changes everything, but possibly not everything. For a while, Larry was the richest man in the world, overtaking Elon, and Oracle joined that coveted 1 trillion market cap club. Then it started to get a little bit messy.
People asked questions, didn't they?
People started to ask questions. First was in the whole area around RPO and tech consumption economics and what does it mean?
It's interesting because it's like the whole world now feels how a UK small cap fund manager feels. I've got this narcissistic guy who's always been slightly underperforming, and now he's telling me we're going to have this huge blowout over the next 5 years with commitments. Yes.
Now, the good point is that RPO has a definition, it's deferred revenue plus committed but unbilled backlog. But if we go into the nature of consumption, the real gain here is that it can be switched up and switched down. In addition to that, you can defer and delay it. So rev rec becomes a bit of an issue. So it may not actually occur as you think it might occur, because it is based on post-performance usage.
And there is always this ongoing conversation as, oh, they will catch up, they will catch up. They're just deferring it.
You've gone back to your UK small cap fund
It is.
manager again. But the other side of the questioning was on, who are these customers? Who is spending all of this?
And can I sue them?
For non-payment. And there, the sort of, as the story evolved, is that OpenAI has agreed to spend $300 billion with Oracle over a 5-year period. This is to build out their 4.5 gigawatt data center, and that's the Stargate initiative. 4.5 gigawatts is a mind-boggling number.
That's a lot of heat.
To put it in context, the UK has 1.7 nationwide.
And we have how many? 400, 500 data centers?
We have from 500 data centers across the UK, absolutely. Now, the good news is that the UK capacity is to grow to 4 gigawatts by 2028. But if you can see it, the enthusiasm for Oracle, the huge number, the huge expectation of growth started to deflate as people looked at RPO, the economics of consumption, who the customer was. And then we saw $1 trillion drift down to where it is today, which is 850. I hate to end on a sorry tale of Larry losing money.
Larry losing money. Well, Larry's lost money before, and the sort of thing that sort of strikes me with this is two things. First of all, Larry's idea of commitment's not great because he's been married 6 times. And the other one is that it feels like the whole AOL Time Warner, where it's like big drum roll, and then everyone goes, "You what? Why? How do we put the numbers together? What assumptions are you actually making here, boys and girls?"
Ian, I'm wobbling on my chair. That deal pretty much defined peak bubble. Are you drawing parallels?
It feels a bit like that, but it wasn't quite peak bubble. In fact, that was quite a week, really, wasn't it? You go back to it because it was second week of January. The first week of January, everyone had come back thinking that the world was going to blow up and aeroplanes would fall. And then we realised that the tech industry had been blowing smoke up our posteriors. So I feel that we're in that sort of situation where thinking it's now more acceptable to talk about bubble and things not working out quite to plan.
Yes. And I know a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the MIT study talking about the lack of ROI on AI projects in a corporate setting and the paucity of POCs moving to full implementation. But a little bit like .com bubble, this wasn't a story about adoption. This was a story of valuation and the valuation bubble.
It's also a question of financing.
Yes.
And where is this money going to come from, Mr. Altman? That then raises the spectre as it felt slightly odd for the last few years versus the bubble in that it's been politically acceptable to be on the call and to start asking about returns because the equity analysts, those kind of people, as it were, weren't in on the game. Their side of the business wasn't making any money out of it. And now we suddenly think, oh, someone's got to raise some money, someone's got to fund this, and then suddenly the bankers are going to be on side in a way that they haven't been before, which makes for an interesting set of dynamics, I think.
And also, in fact, I am reminded of Mary, the Queen of the Internet, and Jack Grubman, and also the life cycle of these, because the US has had a great IPO week. So yes, investment banking is being drawn in.
Yes, we are getting that we've got to keep this show on the road type mindset.
That's right. Now, they weren't AI natives in terms of the latest crop, but the market has sort of sprung open in the US. At the same time, if you're looking for bubble, then does that suggest we're closer to peak bubble if we start to get IPOs?
Yes, indeed. But we're not getting IPOs quite yet in the UK, are we?
No, but I think you can start to put a list together which almost uses up your fingers on one hand.
Yes, actually, it has to be said. I think if it wasn't for Rachel putting it on the November time for the budget, we might be getting something a bit sooner than this. But looking forward to next year, there are things coming through.
Very good point.
We've got Visma, which we like. Kraken, I think that's pretty amazing.
I think I'm going to say like.
Once you get your head around the way in which utilities firms work internationally, or they work in different countries, different states across the US, and
Yes.
the chaos and the opportunity they have to address over there, valuation might be a bit risky. Beauty tech, obviously one of your personal favorites, putting your LED beauty mask on every night to sleep.
It's on now. You're just being horrible. You know I love the metaverse, and you're just constantly looking for the angle to needle me on. So my digital twin does the work now. You know that. I'm just having fun.
And ClearScore and SumUp. ClearScore, questions about the valuation, and SumUp, interesting business, but once again, questions about the valuation.
Which there always are. I'm going to say in the old days on price discovery, that's what you would find. You would find the price then. Clearly, you don't have price discovery in the US, which is one of the reasons why you have these massive leaps and bounds. And of course, getting retailers in on the transactions as well. So I don't know if any of that starts to impact the UK IPO process, which was in former times a very slick machine.
Yes.
Does that change now?
We have to remember that these things not getting away at silly valuations is not a failure of the public market, or if you want to be specific, the UK market. It's a question that hangs over the last people who invested in these companies, which is the VCs or SoftBank. So perhaps shouldn't get too concerned about it. These people, they generally invested over many years. They might take not so much down rounds, but not quite the initial bid that they were getting from the US banks that they knocked on the door when they wanted to start the IPO process.
But what that means is that you've got a convincing story why you should IPO in America, given the underlying supportive valuation environment, whereas you don't really have that in the UK. And what you've got in the UK is, on the demand side, investors clamoring for new transactions. But are they going to pay good fat multiples when they can say, well, in my current portfolio, these are what valuations are doing, and you can't have more than that?
Yes, but I feel that over the years, looking across the Atlantic, has always sort of stuck in my mind is that, yes, the UK might not pay up front, but in the US, if you get it wrong, goodbye.
Super point. And one that isn't made at all in the public domain. But UK investors are far, far more forgiving. And as we both know, tech does not move upwards in a straight line. You know, you have little blind alleys, cul-de-sacs, down periods, up periods. And on that, actually, consumption economics accentuates the impact of down periods. I remember a lovely conversation with a sales guy of a US company that was, at the moment, it's about 40% of US SaaS companies go now fully consumption rather than subscription. And they were saying, our problem is the numbers we report to investors have always gone up. And we have a quarter coming where I suspect the numbers will go down for the first time ever. And we are all bricking it.
This whole consumption versus subscription, the way in which it works, it's difficult to get your head around when you're looking at these companies. As to a lot of these companies want to get you in the door with a subscription, and then you suddenly discover that you're paying through the nose when you start to actually ramp up use beyond certain areas.
That's the glory of catch 'em cheap, and then in proper druggy style, just get them addicted to it. It does change the nature of the sale, which is something that has bothered me as you move from software companies, which is about finding new people, to a sales team, which is really predicated on working existing customers.
Yes.
It's a different approach to customers, yes, but absolutely in terms of how to manage your sales team and then how they should be compensated as well. Another whole podcast.
Yes, not so much land and expand, but more sort of land and exploit. What else has been going? Oh, yes, on my side of the fence, I've had a little visit to the judges' results. Mentioned them at the last set of results for Judges Scientific back in March. This is this sort of wonderful sort of compounder business, UK small cap, buying instrumentation businesses, typically quite small, typically on a very low multiple, putting them into the group, grinding them a bit harder, giving them sort of shared skills, shared access across the world. It's done very well. It has had some issues recently with Cortec, which was a business it built that does sampling of cores from ships. And it's cyclical, should we say, to be generous to it on that. But it's really been hit very hard by the fact that the US universities, which is where a considerable chunk of its business is, they've stopped spending on their instrumentation because they don't know what they're doing. It's an interesting story, but what struck me is that I sat there in this room, and it is odd as a techie analyst with a hardware bias doing software as well. When you go back into the engineering world and you sit in a room full of engineering analysts, and I suppose we all fall into tribes, don't we, as groups, and we all tend to ask the same kind of questions, and we all tend to sort of go down the same set of processes. But the process that was being followed by those analysts, it just didn't seem to me to be grasping the idea of what this company does, what the instrument does. The instruments gather data. They're highly sophisticated pieces of electronics. And yet we were talking about it as if it was an engineering company, as if it was a metal basher. And the idea that is the UK market seeing beyond this as a piece of kit? And I don't think they do. I mean, it's not their fault. And maybe I see it too much the other way. But it seems to me, particularly in the light of Spectris going out at twice the market price only a matter of weeks ago, that the UK fund managers, UK analyst community just doesn't seem to want to see tech, doesn't seem to want to think about innovation in the way that perhaps it should.
Ian, I'm reminded on other things you've also been doing, and maybe it's part of your thematic approach, but you were also at IP Group. Now, did you have a similar experience there as you're trying to look at it from a different perspective than the fintech guys that were there?
Well, we almost sort of come at it in the other way, in that a lot of IP Group, of course, is biotech and medtech.
Yes.
So I'm sitting there scratching my head thinking, oh dear, what the hell are they thinking this is ever going to work? How long is their time scale on this? And to say, we're in different tribes, and it's very difficult to sort of look across them. But things are, for IP Group, generally going in the right direction. They're seeing businesses being sold off, being IPO'd. Some of their valuations are going down, but that's sort of almost to the sort of feeling that, yes, it lags in the private market, the public markets. So, yes, we're sort of bottoming out on that. The usual comments about the UK sort of scale-up community.
When you say the usual comments about the UK scale-up community, is there sort of natural pivot into the US? Because they acquired a group of really smart scale-up VCs last year. So they are building those skills in-house at
Yes.
IP Group, pre-IPO.
They're building the skills, but we have the issue that it takes more than one VC to turn around this whole area of the market. I mean, there are plenty of other people playing in it, but it is this sort of point that we don't quite have the capacity there, the smooth line that goes from being a seed through to A to B to C to D to E to float, or E to taken over by a larger company and we get the control premium, or it gets taken over by PE and we just get a bit more than maybe we might get at an IPO. We just don't have the balance to the system yet. Although I am going to be terribly cynical and say that I think we are asking the wrong question, which is that maybe the issue is that it's not that we haven't got a problem at scale up. Maybe we've just got too much money going in at the seed stage, and maybe we should be balancing out seed money to the scale up, because we are incredibly generous in this country to the seed community.
I wasn't at the event, but I was at a different event where people were talking about an event that they'd been to earlier yesterday, and that was Sherry Cotu speaking to startups and scale-ups. And her big point dovetails in what you're saying. There's no shortage of capital at this early stage. So please don't think that's a barrier to your success.
Yes.
Her point being the barrier to your success is hiring great people. And that's where our challenge is. So no, she is absolutely on the page. Capital is not the issue at that early stage in terms of the UK market.
Yes. It's a number of years down the road when everything should be starting to come together and you're going to put your big boy pants on.
Yes.
And we're not quite there at the moment.
Very good. Otherwise, in terms of the UK, I mean, clearly everything is BBTP. We still have H1 results coming through from the tech sector. We had Trustpilot this week, good results there. Eagle Eye, Eleco, they came through, mixed from Focusrite. But S3, Ian, I don't know if you saw it or not.
Not good.
S3 have now started to warn, not on this year, but on next year. Again, feeding to all of those concerns about what is going on with employment. And of course, employment is really a reflection of where we are in terms of the broader economy. So bad news there, but accentuated at the moment because of the unknown impact of AI. And then the other thing, which could be increasingly popular, is that if the other company is saying we're getting rid of people because of the use of AI, then we must do it too.
It's a fabulous excuse not to do anything.
It's a great excuse. I would, however, like to crow about TinyBuild.
Yes.
So TinyBuild is a client of Progressive, so ring the bell. We love them. But TinyBuild is a video gaming company. And as you know, that market has been decimated for the past 2 years. It's starting to get better. The H1 print out of TinyBuild, adjusted EBITDA, swung from a loss of 2.3 million US last year to 4.2 million profit. They have a brimful pipeline and really interesting pipeline in terms of the slate coming through. Some really good scores on Steam. So they've got 4 titles in the top 100.
4?
I know. Wow.
Good stuff.
Very good stuff. Yeah. So that should give them sales momentum. That said, it's not just TinyBuild. Investors will have seen the whole cohort in terms of the UK group come out with poor numbers over these past 2 years, but it looks as if that segment is starting to get better. Some great valuations in that neck of the woods. I really want to say I'm increasingly optimistic about 2026. You've talked about IPO markets starting to open up. BBTP means we've got new spenders in the UK. I don't know if you saw Kainos today, little acquisition in Canada. So we've got companies sticking their heads above the parapet and looking at capital allocations. What can I do to expand the business rather than just buy back shares? Are you thinking, Ian, about 2026 yet?
Not really, not yet. I think everyone's just stuck on 26th of November or whatever it is. The wheels haven't fallen off, despite the fact that everybody seems to want them to have fallen off. Yesterday's news, you sit there and think, oh, wow, what have we done with the BBTP? How have we managed to pull this off? And then you think, well, we're totally enthralled to the US. Well, we were totally enthralled to the US anyway.
Yes. I don't know why people have a problem understanding that. That is the reality of it. Yes.
Yes. So you look at it and you think, well, what's happened in France? What's happened in Germany? You think, well, actually, we are the right place to go to if you want to address this area of the world. If you want to have access to 4 of the top 10 universities in the world, we're very good at doing ourselves down on these kinds of things and getting perhaps distracted by junk and rubbish and noise. The basic British business case remains firmly intact, despite the City and Rachel Reeves and the Conservative Party before her attempts to sort of trip it up along the way.
Ian, on that incredible bombshell, i.e., I agree entirely with your proposition. Thank you so much for your time. Enthusiasm abounds.
Good. Well, I shall talk to you next week.
Brought to you by Progressive Equity.